Pulse Talk, bringing insights into health and wellness with your hosts, Christine and Alex.
So you're listening because you're thinking about your diet, maybe your general well-being, and perhaps you've wondered how your own DNA fits into that whole picture.
Exactly. It's a really interesting question, isn't it? Like, is there one perfect diet for everyone, or is it more, personal?
Right. And that's what we're getting into today.
Yeah, we're diving into this field called nutrigenomics. Basically, think of it as the conversation happening between your genes and the food you eat.
Okay.
And today, we want to unpack how knowing more about this can, maybe lead to a more tailored way of eating for you and just a better handle on what your body specifically needs.
And we're actually going to use a sample nutrigenomics test report to sort of ground the discussion, make it a bit more concrete.
That's the plan.
So the big questions are, what is nutrigenomics, really? How do these DNA tests even work based on this report anyway? What sort of insights can you actually get? And I guess the bottom line, how does this help you make, smarter choices for your health?
Great questions. Let's tackle the first one. Nutrigenomics, at its heart, is all about exploring that relationship between your unique genetic makeup, your diet, and ultimately your health outcomes.
Okay, so how our genes talk to our food?
Pretty much. Your genes, they contain the instructions, the blueprint for building and running your body.
So not just eye color, but how we handle lunch.
Exactly. Your genes code for proteins, and proteins do almost everything in the body. Now, here's the thing. We all share something like, 99.9% of our DNA?
Right. We're mostly the same.
But those tiny differences, those small variations, you can think of them like tiny spelling variations in your personal code. They can influence quite a lot. Like certain traits, maybe risk factors for some conditions, and importantly for us today, how your body actually responds to different nutrients from your food.
Ah, okay. So nutrigenomics is trying to figure out how my specific genetic quirks, let's say, affect how I use vitamins, minerals, fats, all that stuff.
You've got it. It's about understanding if your particular genetic variations might mean you, say, process vitamin D differently than someone else, or maybe how you handle certain types of fats.
Right.
It's a bit like different cars might have slightly different engines, right? So one might run better on premium fuel, another on regular. Your genes influence how your body uses the fuel from your diet.
That makes a lot of sense. But I mean, surely it's not just genetics, right? What about, my lifestyle, the actual food I choose to eat?
Oh, absolutely. You're spot on. That's the classic nature versus nurture idea. Your genes lay a foundation, definitely. But your lifestyle choices, your environment, and especially your diet, these are huge factors. They really shape your health.
So DNA isn't destiny.
Not at all. It's more like tendencies.
Yeah.
Or predispositions, how those play out. That often depends heavily on your choices and your environment.
Okay, that clarifies the what. Now, this sample report we have, it mentions the methods. Can you walk us through just generally how they actually do this kind of DNA testing?
Sure. So it usually starts with getting a sample from you. Often it's just a saliva swab. Easy enough.
Okay.
That sample contains your DNA. Scientists then isolate that DNA and use some pretty sophisticated technology. Called next-generation sequencing, NGS.
Next-generation sequencing. Sounds impressive.
It kind of is. Think of it as a massively powerful way to read your genetic code really, really quickly and in great detail.
Wow. Reading my code super fast.
Yeah. And this sample report mentions they look at a huge amount of DNA, somewhere between 33 and 42 million base pairs. Millions. And specifically, they often focus on variations called SNPs, single nucleotide polymorphisms.
SNPs. Okay, what are those again?
Think of them as specific spots in your DNA sequence where people commonly have a different genetic letter. This report, for example, looked at over 795,000 of these SNPs.
Whoa, nearly 800,000 tiny differences. Why those specific ones?
Well, they're chosen because a lot of scientific research has linked these particular SNPs to various health aspects. Things like how we process nutrients, our metabolism, diet-related predispositions, that sort of thing.
Gotcha.
So your DNA is made of that long sequence of A, T, C, and G letters, right? NGS reads that sequence at these millions of specific points.
So they're looking for my unique spelling at those key locations.
Exactly. And once they have your sequence data for those spots, they compare it against a standard reference human genome. The report mentions one called GRCH38.
A reference point.
Right. And they use specialized databases and tools. The report lists a few, like QIGN, Ingenuity Knowledge Base, NOAD, ClinVar. These help them interpret what your specific variations might actually mean.
So these databases are kind of like giant genetic encyclopedias. They help figure out the potential impact.
That's a good way to put it, yeah. By comparing your profile against all this existing research and data, they can start to build a picture of how your genetics might influence your nutritional needs or responses.
Okay, I think I get the basic process. Now, the really interesting bit for me, what kind of stuff would I actually learn from a report like this? I see sections like report summary, vitamin, mineral, fatty acid.
Right. These reports aim to give you personalized insights into your potential predispositions related to diet and nutrition. If you glance at the report summary in this sample, you see categories like diet and nutrition, and it might flag things like a potential for higher needs for certain vitamins like vitamin D or E, or it might suggest something like caffeine hypersensitivity.
Caffeine sensitivity. Okay, now you're talking. I definitely feel that sometimes. So a report could potentially point to a genetic reason for why I get jittery.
It could, yeah. It might indicate if you have genetic variations known to be linked with slower caffeine metabolism, for instance, which often leads to that stronger reaction.
Interesting.
The summary also mentions health risk, though this sample doesn't go into specifics there. It just shows the broader scope these reports sometimes touch on.
Okay. But let's dig into those nutrient examples. Vitamin D, everyone talks about it for bones, right? Like, what might a report say there?
Well, vitamin D is vital, for bones, muscles. We get it from sunlight, oily fish, red meat, fortified foods. The report would likely look at genes involved in how your body transports, activates, or uses vitamin D.
Okay.
And if you have certain common variations in those genes, the report might suggest you have a genetic predisposition towards needing, perhaps more vitamin D than the average person.
Interesting. So my genes might mean I need to be more mindful about getting enough vitamin D. What about vitamin E? It's an antioxidant, right?
Exactly. Vitamin E is important for protecting cells from damage, for your immune system, muscle strength too. You find it in plant oils, nuts, seeds.
Right.
And similar to vitamin D, the report might analyze genes related to vitamin E levels or metabolism and suggest if your genetic profile points towards a potentially higher individual need.
Makes sense. And minerals. I see calcium and magnesium listed. Crucial stuff, too.
Absolutely crucial. Calcium, bones, but also heart function, muscles, nerves, sources like dairy, leafy greens. The report could offer insights into genetic factors affecting how well you might absorb or utilize calcium.
Okay.
And magnesium involved in so many things. Muscle function, energy production, bone health, found in spinach, nuts, seeds. Again, genes can influence how your body handles it, and the report might give clues about your personal requirements.
Okay, now fats, omega-3s, omega-6s. There's always so much talk about getting the balance right.
Yes, they're essential fatty acids. Omega-3s, especially EPA and DHA from fatty fish, are famous for anti-inflammatory benefits, heart health, brain function. Then there's ALA, another omega-3 from plants like flaxseed or walnuts. Your body can convert ALA into EPA and DHA, but that conversion process isn't always super efficient for everyone. And omega-6s, found in soybean oil, corn oil, sunflower oil, they're important too, for brain function growth. The report might look at genes involved in processing all these fats, maybe giving insights into that ALA conversion efficiency, for example, or how you handle saturated fats.
So it could potentially tell me if my body's maybe not great at turning those plant-based omega-3s into the really useful stuff like EPA and DHA. That would be really good to know.
Precisely. It could offer clues about your body's natural tendencies with these essential fats. And, the report covers more to other nutrients like CoQ10, potential food sensitivities like lactose or gluten, even things like taste perception. It's pretty broad.
Wow. Okay. This really starts to paint a picture of how personalized nutrition could actually work in practice. So how does knowing all this actually help me make better choices day to day?
Well, understanding these potential genetic predispositions allows you to be more informed, more targeted in your dietary approach.
For example?
Okay, so if your report suggests a tendency towards lower vitamin D levels, you might consciously choose more vitamin D-rich foods, or, importantly, discuss potential supplementation with your doctor or a dietitian.
Right.
Or, take the caffeine example. If you see a genetic suggestion for sensitivity, you can make a conscious choice to perhaps limit your intake or switch to decaf and see how you feel.
So it's less guesswork, more informed experimentation based on my own biology, like being proactive instead of just reacting.
Exactly. Proactive is a great word. It empowers you to tailor things a bit more specifically to you. But this is really, really important.
Okay.
These reports show predispositions, potential tendencies. They are not diagnostic tools.
Right. That's a key disclaimer.
Absolutely. Your genes are only one part of a much bigger health picture.
Yeah.
Your current lifestyle, your overall diet quality, stress levels, exercise, your environment, all these things interact and have a massive impact. Plus, you should always discuss any major dietary changes or concerns with healthcare professionals.
So having a genetic risk doesn't automatically mean I will get a certain condition or definitely need more of a nutrient.
Correct. It just might mean your baseline tendency is slightly different.
Yeah.
And often, as the report mentions, with things like polygenic risk scores or
PRS,
polygenic risk scores, for many complex traits or health conditions, it's not just one gene, but many, many genes working together, each with a small effect, plus those environmental factors. PRS tries to combine the effects of lots of these small genetic variations to give a more holistic picture of your overall genetic predisposition.
So it's looking at the bigger genetic landscape, not just single points in isolation.
Exactly. It aims for a more nuanced understanding of those inherited tendencies.
Okay. This has been incredibly insightful, really fascinating. If we were to sort of boil it down, what are the main things you'd want someone listening to take away from this deep dive?
I think the key takeaways are, one, nutrigenomics is this really exciting field looking at that unique link between your genes and your diet. 2, DNA tests, like the sample we looked at, use advanced tech to analyze your code and offer personalized insights. 3, these insights can touch on potential needs for specific nutrients, sensitivities, how you might process certain foods. And finally, 4, this knowledge isn't a crystal ball, but it can be a really valuable tool. It can boost your health awareness and help you make more informed, personalized choices to support your well-being.
It definitely makes you think, doesn't it? How understanding your own unique biological blueprint could actually be a powerful step towards fine-tuning your diet and taking charge of your health journey in a new way. Really food for thought. Thanks so much for breaking this down for us.